A little over 1 year ago, I made a review and unboxing video of one of the smallest filters on the market, the UNS Blitz canister filter, this little guy right here. Since it's been a little over a year, I figured I'd do a follow-up review video and see if my opinions and thoughts on this thing have changed since I first got it. They have, so let's get right into this. Now, the filter I have here is the 6-ounce canister filter. UNS makes a 32-ounce canister filter along with this 6-ounce. That's the Blitz line. It's a 6-ounce and a 32-ounce. I've never used or even touched the 32-ounce before, so all my thoughts and opinions on this guy are solely based off of the one right in front of me here, the 6-ounce. So just keep that in mind as I'm going through the pros and cons and my thoughts on this filter. Now, in my original video, I think my takeaways were that I loved the filter. I thought it was great, but I didn't think it was worth the retail price of $200. I also mentioned something about not liking the tubing, but there's nothing wrong with the tubing. It's totally fine. It's normal filter tubing. I just didn't like the color of it, and that's just a personal preference for me. That's all that there was about the tubing, but when it comes to the filter, I just don't know that I believe that it's worth the $200. So anyway, so the first thing is the price. Just like my opinions on this, the price has not changed, and it's still $200. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's worth that much money. I think it's a great piece. It's a great piece of equipment, but it's not $200 worth. Don't get me wrong, it's a really cool piece and it's made of really high quality material, but again, there's some problems with it, and I think if you're paying $200 for a little filter like this, you shouldn't be having the problems that I've experienced. So the price, I would say, is not worth it. I think it's great, but I don't know. I don't think it's worth $200. It is a fantastic conversation starter though. It's made of beautiful stainless steel. The design is really cool and I really like it. A lot of my friends and family, when they see this thing in my gallery, they ask me about it and they want to know more about it because it's a really cool piece and it's a great conversation starter. But again, $200, not really sure it's worth that. One of the things that I have changed my mind on is the actual filtration part of this piece. It's a great filter, and when I got it, I was really skeptical that it wouldn't have the power to filter the tank properly. This thing filters 15 gallons per hour, and what I noticed is that it just doesn't have the power that I would like in a filter. It's great if you've got a little nano tank, anything under 3 gallons, I would say, but anything over that, I think you would need to upgrade to the 32-ounce or just get a hang-on back or something different, because this doesn't have a lot of power. Really, all it is this little pump right here, and it's just a USB pump. It's nothing fancy, nothing incredible. It's just the little rotating head here. And you have to start this thing by doing a siphon technique, which I think is kind of lame that you can't just plug it in and it turns on. Having to do that extra step is a little lame in my opinion. But UNS has a great setup video for this on their YouTube channel. I'll link that below. I'll also link the purchase link to this thing down below if you do want to get it. And it will be an affiliate link, so you'll be directly supporting this channel at no extra cost if you buy through that link. Something to note with this is that it doesn't provide a lot of surface agitation. It's not designed to sit at the surface and create a lot of movement. It's really just a tried and true nano tank filter. So what I discovered is in my tanks, I like a lot of surface movement. I like a lot of power and flow out of my filters. So this just kind of didn't match my style of what I prefer to have in my aquariums. Now, again, like I said, this thing still filters 15 gallons an hour, which is a really good turnover if you've got a little 3-gallon or just a really small nano tank. But if you're doing anything over 5 gallons, this is not the filter for you. So after a year of use, I think, my take on this is that it's a good filter, but it's just not my style. Like I said, I like a lot of movement in my tanks. I like a lot of flow and a lot of surface agitation. And unfortunately, this filter just doesn't quite give me the power and the water movement that I want. Now, when it comes to the problems that I've had with this thing, they're not major problems. They're not like crucial errors in the design or anything like that. It's just some little things. Like, for instance, the pump. It's just a USB pump right here. And so what I found is that every now and then it would just lose its suction power. And I would notice that the filter would be running and I could hear the pump and the propeller spinning, but nothing was coming out of the outflow. And it's not a very good thing to have. It's just, I don't know if there was air in there or what the issue was, but I found that I would have to unplug it and then plug it back in and it would kick on again. But just one of those little things that, I don't know. I feel like if I'm spending $200 on this thing, I want it to be working 100% of the time and not have these little issues where just a little bit of air can cause issues. Now, just like my first video, I think my favorite thing about this is the build quality and the look of it. Everything about this thing looks awesome. It's sturdy. You can tell it's built with really high quality materials. Like I said, I've been using it and running it for a year and there's no scratches, there's no dents. I've dropped it a couple times and there was no issues with that. So build quality, aesthetic look, color, everything about it is super cool looking. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a major conversation starter. This thing sparked so many conversations with my friends and family members that were visiting who just thought it was a super cool piece of equipment. They didn't even know it was a filter. They just asked what it was because it looked so cool and so interesting. So pros, definitely aesthetic, looks, color. I think it's a fantastic novelty item if you have a fancy looking gallery, like all rimless tanks or something like that. I think it's a super cool and super aesthetic looking filter. Cons, I would say the filter flow, the power of the pump, and then the price is the biggest thing. Again, at $200, I don't know what it is about this that is worth $200. And to me, maybe I'm just a bit stingy, but to me, $200 is just, it's a lot of money for something that has a few issues and something that's so small too. It's a lot of money, but if $200 is nothing to you and you want this, and you think this looks cool, then by all means get it, because it does do the job. If you have a super small nano tank, this thing's going to get the job done. It's gonna do well in your tank. It's gonna filter the water nicely. It's just not my style of a piece of equipment with what I want to see out of a filter. So yeah, I'm not really sure that there's much else to say on this other than that it's a really nice piece of equipment. Opening it up, let's see if I can open it up. You just take this off. It takes a little bit to unthread and some water might pour out, but hey, we're fish keepers, so whatever. Thread's on really nice. There's nothing in here because I've cleaned it out, but it's just a little 6-ounce canister, you know. There's some metal pieces here to keep everything in place, like the media and whatnot. I think the weirdest part for me is that it screws in and unscrews from the bottom, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. I was really nervous about water leaking out, but there's no leaks. It never leaked once, which I think is a really cool thing about it. I guess that's another pro, is very tightly sealed, no leaks whatsoever. Cons, price, and a little bit of the functionality too. But yeah, I love UNS. I love what they're doing with the hobby. I love that they've got something like this available. I think that's a super cool thing. And I love this piece. I'm definitely gonna keep it running on my nano aquariums. I've got a little UNS 3N over here out of frame that I've been running it on, and I'm gonna keep running it on that because it is a really cool piece. A little pro tip that I stumbled upon was not to use the full length of the tubing. If you're not needing the full length of the tubing, then just cut the tubing to a shorter piece so that the water doesn't have to travel as far to get into the tank. Because this little pump, doesn't exactly have a lot of lift power. So that's something to keep in mind, is the lift power on this thing. I'm spacing on how high the lift power is, but I'll put it on the screen somewhere here so that you can see that. So yeah, if you don't need all the filter tubing, then there's no need to use it. Just cut it to size, and that will help the flow of this filter a lot better. So that's my review. I think this is a great little product. It's a fun product for sure. It's a fun thing to have in your gallery, and it's a fun thing to spark conversation with other hobbyists and people that visit your gallery. But yeah, it is UNS too, so you are paying for more of a high-end brand, and I think that's where a lot of the cost comes in. If this was a cheaper brand, I'm not gonna name any names, but it might be cheaper if it was a different brand. But UNS is more high quality stuff, and so I think, you know, you pay the price for the name brand as well. If you've got this filter at home or you're looking to get this filter and you have any questions or think I left anything out, drop it below in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Any tips that you have that you found maybe modifying this, I'd love to hear it in the comments. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.